Sasaki and Peeps Volume 1 Review. While each may be atop the ranking in the 2021 edition of this light novel is amazing, when the 2022 issue came out, the throne was stolen by a newcomer, Sasaki and Peeps. With an anime forthcoming, the light novel series has made its way west. Thanks to young press that doesn't improve an exciting read, let's take a look. The story follows Sasaki, whose co-worker has recently adopted a dog and passionately tells anyone who listens all about it. Feeling tired and unfulfilled with his life as a corporate slave and being in his late 30s, Sasaki decides it might be time to mix things up and adopt a pet of his own. His small apartment and long work hours don't give him the leeway to take on a dog like his co-worker, but Sasaki hears that Java sparrows makes perfect companions for someone of his position. So we set out to the nearby pet shop to bring one home. When Sasaki gets home, he quickly discovers that the Java sparrow, which Sasaki calls Peeps, is actually a powerful mage from another world called Pierce Carlo. Peeps tells Sasaki that he has a talent for magic. Peeps uses Sasaki as a middleman. They can channel more of his magic too. Peeps can even use a teleportation skill to take Sasaki to his former world, an offer our protagonist quickly accepts. As you may expect, the world Peeps comes from his one of the swords and sorcery, because people are so dependent on magic. Technology hasn't advanced very far, which gives Sasaki the idea of selling things from Japan here in this other world. This leads to Sasaki making frequent trips between worlds, helped by the fact time passes so much slower. He can spend a couple of weeks in the other world and still show up in time for work in Japan afterwards. This also gives him plenty of time to learn magic from Peeps. Although the teleportation spell frustratingly remains out of reach for now due to this difficulty, if this was all there was a Sasaki and Peeps, it will be interesting enough already, but there's still more to the premise. Back in Japan, Sasaki witnesses a fight between espers and after intervening, is recruited to a top-secret task force that deals with people with powers. Of course, Sasaki doesn't want to reveal anything about Peeps or the fact his power is actually magic, so he goes along with his new boss and pretends to have the singular ability to wield water. There's also a subplot about the magical girl, which I never quite get to the bottom of, and another about the neglected middle schooler who lives next door to Sasaki and dreams of making love to him to get away from her abusive household. We're told in the monologue that Sasaki has tried calling social services about the situation and otherwise try his best not to interact with her too much, in case someone notices and decides he, as a single adult man, is a danger to the girl. Nevertheless, she's attached to him, and even just the small talk they make is more than enough for her fantasy to grow, a minister to our protagonist. So at this point, I think it goes without saying that Sasaki and Peeps is a combination of ideas that could make up several different series all by themselves. While unlike the central premise of traveling between worlds, I admit that Esper storyline in Japan felt like that came out of nowhere, and author Bonkololi doesn't do a good job of delivering a satisfying conclusion to it either. It's pushed aside almost as quickly as it was introduced when the crisis arises in the other world, which serves as a dramatic ending to Volume 1. The magical girl storyline may or may not tie into one of its existing storylines, so we're reserving judgment on that for now. The girl next door storyline is more problematic and takes away from the rest of the book, the strong virtue of being so unsettling. I was more or less on board with this one until one of the side chapters told from her perspective revealed she wanted to sleep with Sasaki, and that I instantly checked out. I pray this one doesn't continue to go down this road in the following books, especially when the author set up quiet will be showing us the Sasaki aware of the implications of being seen with the middle schooler and called the relevant organizations to help her. If only other protagonists were this sensible, despite the hodgepodge of ideas, I came away from Volume 1 having enjoyed my time with it, which is perhaps what matters most. Despite there being several female characters on the front cover, there's no romance here, outside of the neighbors' delusions anyway, and no signs of a harem which so many of these fantasy titles fall into. Sasaki and Peace make for an interesting duo to lead us through the story, not least because Sasaki is far more mature than the protagonist of these tales usually is. And when I say that, I'm not even referring to this age, but simply the way he approaches the world around him. There's an air of maturity and sensibility which is rare in this genre. It praises Bonkololi for not juggling all the storylines very well. I will say that there's not a talented writer, but focus on one single thing. Sasaki and Peace is well written, with scenes that are easy to follow and detailed enough to be interesting but not bog down the reader. Things move smoothly and are easy to enjoy. I'll certainly transition with the anime, so with that in mind, I have to wonder if some of the problems with this book come from it being a web novel, something that haunts quite a few of these releases. as of late, unfortunately. Sasaki and Peeps volume comes to the West thanks to Yen Press, which has been translated by Alice Prose. Prose has done a good job giving a big cast of characters, easy to distinguish voices, as well as Sasaki and Peace, who cover the different worlds and will use similar words or phrases. Illustrations for the series have been handled by Katoku, and there's quite a variety of color pages in the beginning that capture the different elements of the series well. There are 10 pages of characters profiles at the back of the release too, which is nice to have. Audrey does highlight the fact Kantoku is better to have having the female side of the cast, as opposed to the guys who look very familiar. The series is ongoing in Japan with 6 volumes, while here, Yen had already released number 2 in English, with 3 following later this month. They're also releasing the manga adaptation, which will be reviewed in the future, so keep an eye for that if a manga is more your thing. Overall, Sasaki and Peace Volume 1 is filled to the brim with ideas and one that doesn't juggle them particularly. While it's easy to see how it's fun an audience for itself, when author Bon Colori because focuses on one element of writing the characters draw you into the world and ensure you have fun. If you're okay with some rough edges, this one is certainly worth adding to your collection, but otherwise, maybe wait to see how Volume 2 fares. 7 out of 10.